Hey, you guys, welcome back. I am so excited to have Kristen Jensen with us today. Kristen is the founder of Defend Young Minds, and this is an organization that is just really important in helping families really wage the fight that they are in against improper images and just defending the minds of their kids. So, Kristen, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about Defend Young Minds.
Yeah, thank you so much, Leslie, for having me. Defend Young Minds is all about having a plan. You talked about having a plan for parents, right? To fight back against the digital dangers that their children will face. So we're talking online predators, we're talking, pornography, and screen addiction, all kinds of addictions. So we are here to help with all those things. We have free guides to download. We write articles um, on a regular basis on our website, and we just are there to help parents in this very sensitive topic to keep their children, to defend their children and give their kids digital defense skills, right? Because we can't be hovering over them every single minute. We have to we have to empower them, right, with the skills that they need to be strong, to be happy, to be successful, and not be hurt by the digital dangers that are out there.
Oh, absolutely. And it's so important that we give them the tools, like you noted, so that they can stand on their own because the time of hovering, where you actually have any opportunity to hover at all, goes by really quickly. And so if you
Mm-hmm.
haven't prepared your kids to be out on their own, whether it be at co-op or at a practice or, at church, where they're not right there with you, if you haven't prepared them, you're really setting them up for a fall because this is such a big reality in their lives that it's so important to give them the
Mm-hmm.
skills and the understanding of what they need to do when they are confronted with images or opportunity or whatever it is that may be coming at them.
Absolutely. Kids need these digital defense skills. They don't need to be caught off guard, right?
Right.
No child deserves to face the porn industry alone. Unfortunately, that's happening, and we can do better. Our kids deserve to be fully prepared for to defend themselves. And we shouldn't say it's their responsibility. It's a responsibility of all the grown-ups that unfortunately are putting this stuff out there.
Yeah.
But, we teach our kids to swim because we don't want them to drown. We teach them, to stop and look both ways before they cross the street. As they get older, we need to teach them how to basically be on the internet superhighway without being hurt. And yes, we have to put some filters in place, and we should restrict access. So totally agree with that. But we also need to help them develop an internal filter.
Yeah, absolutely. What have you found through the years of working with families, and really all the research you've done, all of, kind of pulling this information together? How do children react differently when they are prepared for whatever circumstance that they may find themselves in, as opposed to when they are not?
Right. So I don't know about you, Leslie, but when I am caught off guard, I don't do very well,
Yeah.
and I'm always like, if I'd only thought of this to say, or, known what to do. And so, of course, I started all of this when I started writing my book, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and to help parents have a tool to have this conversation in a really comfortable and easy way. And so there are kids that when they're caught off guard, they get pulled in. Their curiosity takes over. Nobody told them, like nobody warned them. Nobody, they just, I think a lot of parents assume that their children will look away or immediately come and tell them what they saw, even if they haven't ever opened up that conversation. And from what I found, the research that I've looked at is that kids tend to not report seeing pornography unless their parents have opened up that conversation. There's a much higher, I think you are much more likely to know what's actually going on with your child if you're having these conversations. I will give you an example of a child. I have several examples of kids that have known. For example, there was a girl. She was on a bus going to a field trip, and she was there with her friend. I think they were in 4th or 5th grade, and a boy came back, and he had a smartphone, and he said, "Hey, look at this," and he showed them pornography. Well, this girl, her mom had read her Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. She recognized it. She rejected it. She knew why she shouldn't look at it. And then when she got home, she reported it. So that's so important for kids to know how to recognize, reject, and report. But guess what her friend did? Her friend kept looking. Her friend didn't know not to look at it, didn't have any reasons not to look at it. So when she got home, her mom actually called the mother of the girl and said, these kids were shown pornography on the bus today. And the thing is this can be anywhere. A bus is one place, but like it could be at a camp out, anywhere that another kid has a smartphone. Our kids need to be prepared to know exactly what to do when they see pornography. And so that is why I wrote Good Pictures, Bad Pictures and started Defend Young Minds. We do have a free guide that people can download completely free called How to Talk to Kids About Pornography. And it's our best tips. It's a quick start guide and gives you some good information so that you can get yourself informed and then start to arm your children and continue those conversations throughout their childhood.
Well, absolutely. And I want to kind of hit on something that you mentioned as you were going along, and that is that your kids are going to be a lot more likely to talk to you about this if you have brought it up, if you have already kind of breached the subject with them, because it's an embarrassing thing. They may be too young to even know exactly why it's so
Right?
embarrassing and weird, but it just inherently
Yeah.
is. And so to do them the service and to give them the tools by opening that conversation. We talk about hard schooling here all the time. Part of hard schooling is to prepare your kids in all ways, having those conversations, getting in the weeds with them, and helping them know when this happens, and it's likely to happen, you come to me immediately. And then you're just opening up that line of communication. The weirdness dissipates some because you've
Right.
already told them it's going to be weird, and the shame dissipates some
Yes.
because you've
Mm-hmm.
already approached it. So having that conversation, I thought that was such a good point that you brought up, that I wanted to make sure I reinforced it, because as a mom, I've seen through the years, this is really, really important that you do open these doors on this topic, as well as a myriad of others that would be difficult, that we're just naturally wanting to shy away from and not talk about, but it's
Right.
so important to do it.
Yeah. We have to have that courage um, to prepare our children for the world that they actually live in. Not the world we grew up in, not the world we wish they were growing up in, but the world they actually live in. And we can do it. We can do it. I remember this a mom um, who told me that before she had any worries about phones uh, and pornography, she went to pick up her daughters. They were at a play date, and so she pulled up uh, to this girl's home. She saw the friend showing again her daughters something on a smartphone, I think they were like in third grade, maybe second grade. I don't know. They were young. And she, when they got in the car, she goes, "Oh, what was she showing you on her phone?" And they kind of looked at each other, and they said, "Oh, it was a My Little Pony video." And they didn't know. And then later on, when she got Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, she read them the book, and they were then able to open up.
Yeah.
And I've heard this experience from many parents. So it's a story, but like it's happened many times. Open up, and they're like, we saw this. Remember that time, And she said they lied to me because they didn't have the vocabulary
Right.
to talk about this. So giving kids the vocabulary, even if it's, saying bad pictures and defining what a bad picture is. And so we have a very simple definition. When I was writing this book, 12 years ago, the hardest part was, how do you define pornography for a child without giving them too much information, right? But giving them just enough to recognize it. And so what I came to was, it's a picture or a video or a cartoon of people with little or no clothing on that focus on the private parts of the body that we keep covered with a swimsuit. So when you use that, then we're talking about nudity that focuses on those parts. Now, obviously, if your kids are seeing nudity online, especially, probably not looking at the Sistine Chapel, right? Or the David, right? They probably are seeing something that you at least want to know about and have a conversation about. So, yes, so important to open up the conversation. Give your kids the vocabulary to talk about this with you. And you know what? Once you start, it becomes so much easier. At first you're like, but then once you get into it and start, it is really comfortable. And it's just another thing. There's so many things you warn your kids about. It's just one more thing, really, that you're warning them about. And yeah, away goes the shame, away goes the, because pornography is shameful. I will say that it is shameful. But we shouldn't be ashamed to talk about it, to shine the light, because when pornography is in the dark, our kids are vulnerable. But when we shine the light on it, that's when they have the power to recognize it and reject it.
Yeah. So good. So good. You told the story about those two girls, and you said they were in like second or third grade, which naturally leads to the question of, how young is too young to be having these conversations? I know as parents, we wish that we could just have it when they're 11, 12, kind of that middle school years, but that is not going to cut it anymore. So how young is too young?
Leslie, I'm so glad you brought this up. When I first started writing Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, I thought 7. 7 was probably about the right age to start talking about this, because that's usually about the age you start talking about the birds and the bees, and you start having these conversations about where babies come from. But then I had parents come to me, like I'd be speaking. I had a couple of different parents come to me saying, are you going to write a book for younger children? And I remember the first mom that came up and asked me that, I just felt like somebody like kind of punched me in the gut, like, what? And so I was even surprised, but then I look around and so many kids are on tablets. So many kids are, and the stories now that I've heard of, 3-year-olds, it's just, so that's when I think it's not an age. It's when a child has any access to the internet, any access. And I'm talking any, even if you think you've got things locked down and there's only a little painting app on the iPad, let me tell you, there's back doors and these kids find them. And so, with my book, the junior book. This one is for kids 3 to 6. And the cool thing is that we had a guide written for this by play therapists. So you can, there's a QR code here, and there's one in the middle, and you can get this guide. It's a play guide to kind of help you walk through the book with your kids and use, toys and stuffed animals and whatever to kind of really help to strengthen those messages in your child's mind so that they know exactly what to do. And so we are providing, that's totally free when you and you can just download it from that QR code on the book. We want parents to feel comfortable, and we want to give them the resources to feel comfortable. It is a sensitive topic. It is. But I walk the walk with my own grandsons. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old grandson. And when you're a grandparent, I mean, as a parent, you are so wanting everything, the best for your children, and you love them and you trust them and you put so much work and sleepless nights, into them. But as a grandparent, you've kind of ripped off the rose-colored glasses because you've seen so much. And so now I look at my grandsons actually differently than my daughter. Like, I am the one saying, hey, and she does read this book to them. And when they come to grandma's house, sometimes, hey, let's read grandma's book to you and let's talk about this. And so they get it. So we're just doing everything we can, just like every other parent. We don't have any special immunity. We are just doing everything we can to help these kids have an internal filter and want to look away and have good reasons to look away from the get-go, so they're not harmed, and they will maintain more of their innocence if they know to reject it and why to reject it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what do you say to the parents that are wondering, if I start talking about this stuff when they're young, or really at any point, will talking about it not kind of pique their curiosity, make them want to kind of sneak around and find it? Because I suspect you've gotten that question before. So how do you kind of combat that question?
Yeah. Well, kids are curious, so I totally get and understand that question. I also get, especially moms, we're going to feel guilty for anything possible. Like, I don't know about you, but like, oh, that must be my fault, There's 2 choices. 2. One is you can cross your fingers, and hope that your kids don't see pornography until you've decided to have this conversation. And I don't know about you, but I don't have a crystal ball. And the research says that parents drastically underestimate their children's not only just negative experiences online, but also their exposure to pornography. So the first one is like, oh, I hope, but that's the one people have been using. It hasn't been working.
Right.
So the proactive plan is the one where I believe you have the best opportunity. And think about other things. Like when you know that your child may encounter a danger, you teach them, don't touch the hot stove. Don't walk out into the street unless you hold my hand or look both ways. You teach them to avoid the danger. And kids are more they are more vulnerable to pornography and to this improper, indecent material than most parents understand. Like, it's the stories I hear of kids finding this through back doors because they were, and also just being shown. So even very, very young children unfortunately, are seeing some material that will harm them and harm how they feel about sex, which I don't know that many of our listeners have said this out loud, but we all want our kids to grow up and have a fantastic sex life with their
Absolutely.
spouse, right? We
Absolutely.
want that for them. But porn is going to turn it in the opposite way. It's going to harm that dream in so many ways. So just another good reason to motivate us to help to prepare them for the eventual, what you want is them to have a happy, healthy marriage.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and I piggybacking on that just a little bit, we've talked about how pornography will impact them. You talked about how it will impact their view of sex and how it can impact their marriage, and so many things that seem maybe to some people a little bit down the road. Like this is way far away, but pornography also is a primary factor in child exploitation, in the sexual abuses and trafficking and all of these things that we're seeing today. How are those two related, and what have you found as far as keeping our children safe just physically right now? How does this impact that?
Absolutely. So, pornography is the number one grooming tool of child
Mm,
sexual predators. Number one, because of course it's easy to get, it's easy to show, it normalizes, sexual activity with a child. It teaches them what to do, So, of course, it is used. So, for example, one mom told me this story about how she read her 6-year-old son Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. And at some time, they were invited to go to a friend's house for dinner. That seems like a very safe place, right? You would never imagine anything would happen there. Now, these friends were doing some renovation, so all the kids' toys were down at the bottom of the basement stairs. So they ran down, picked up a toy, and ran back up. Well, this one 6-year-old, I can imagine he was just kind of like, which toy should I get, And he ended up being down there alone when the renter came up to him, showed him gay porn on the phone, and started to groom that child.
oh my
And
goodness.
this child recognized, that's pornography. Nobody should be showing a child pornography,
Mm,
which are messages in both books. And, I know exactly what to do. So it was like, the alarm bell went off instead of just like, oh, curiosity taking over, which is a natural response. So he got himself upstairs, told his mom, and that was the end of that very, dangerous situation, because here this guy is trying to groom a child that he knows is probably lives close by,
yeah.
um, probably will be over there again. And
Wow.
yeah, so saved himself. And that's not the only story. I've had people come up to me and tell me, your book saved my grandson from a sexual predator. So that's another really powerful reason to warn your children about pornography so they recognize it and they can report it to you. Um, One more thing about the whole child sexual abuse is that what's happening is that as more and more children have access to pornography, they are imitating it with other children. So
Mm,
a few years back, used to be the statistic was 40% of reported child sexual abuse was done by another minor, another child, basically. And now it's up to 70%.
wow.
And so your child is more likely to be offended on by another child, sibling, cousin, you know, than, you know, by an adult, actually, to be honest. Not that we shouldn't be wary, but um, yeah, I just got contacted last weekend by a mom who, is in this situation where her teenage son, sexually abused a younger family member in another state. So now what do? Right? And now their lives are turned upside down. And we have articles on this. My heart goes out to these parents. So we have lots of articles on this very topic because we know that pornography fuels child on child sexual abuse. And both the child that is perpetrating and the child that is a victim, both of them are victims of, the environment that unfortunately they're growing up in. So again, teaching children, to recognize pornography, to turn away from it, I believe will help to protect children, not only from child sexual abuse on them, but also becoming
Right.
child sexual. I hate to call a child an abuser or a perpetrator, but there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I had no idea of that reality today. And that is deeply grievous.
70%. Yeah.
That's just unbelievable. Um, one last topic that I want to talk about before we run out of time. Yeah, we've talked a lot about talking to our children and making sure that they are prepared and aware and that sort of thing. What do you say to the parents who um, have filtered up? They are, definitely doing everything that they can to protect. Um, and just we had when our kids were younger, we had filters at the router level, we had stuff on their computer, we had covenant eyes, we had all of these things, and yet one of mine was exposed through a pop-up ad on a game site that child was allowed to play on, and I saw hit run, hit run, hit run, hit run, hit run, hit run, where it was intriguing enough, but they knew it was wrong, and it was kind of hit and go. And
Yeah.
that got around our filters, that got around, and it happened in a live. It was like I everything from a filter, fencing type standpoint, it would have been hard to lock it down any more than that. So, what do you say to parents who are relying on just those tools?
Right. So, first of all, I would say congratulations and good on you. You should definitely be using those tools. I will recommend Canopy. Really like Canopy. It's AI driven. Basically, it recognizes a nude image or any kind of pornography and blurs it right out. So it doesn't depend on like blacklisting a whole website. It really blurs things out. And so check out Canopy. We really highly recommend them, and we've heard a lot of people speak highly of how much it's helped them. So you can have all these things, but if you have Canopy, that's kind of like it helps. I think that, again, it's a two-pronged, process. Have all those things because you do want to reduce access. You want to send a message that we're doing this not just for you, for all of us, right, for our whole family. We don't want to see this stuff either, right? So, I think if it's kind of like, well, we just want to keep the kids out of this, and no, I think as a family, one of my favorite pictures in Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, the one for older kids, is this one where the whole family are holding up signs and saying, like, we're going to help you through this, right? Mm-hmm. And so I really believe that's important. But then you have to develop an internal filter, a disposition, right, for them to want to look away because they are going to see it at some point, right? There is going to be something that there is going to be something that pops up. Somebody's going to show it to them, and we just don't know when that's ever going to happen. But if they're prepared with a disposition like, you know what, I know all about this. I want to look away. I don't want to fill my mind with all of those images. And I think as they get older, we need to up the game. We need to, continue to talk. And that's why I would invite everyone to, subscribe to Defend Young Minds. We constantly put out great articles to help you along the way with what's currently, a problem. And when it comes to games, any kind of game that allows your child to play with anybody in the world is going to be problematic.
Yeah.
And also, if there is the function of the people can talk to your child, that is also, a problem. So that I just really am concerned about some of those games, and it's hard because they're fun and but where children play, predators prey, and
Right.
so
Right.
it's filled. Those games are filled with predators, and
Yeah.
and your child, even though you've taught your child all the things, they can be. The FBI actually warned about a strategy that was being used on children. So what happens is all these predators, they come, there's a group of them that pose as, other kids, and they're in the game, and then they find their victim, right? And what they do is they start, making friends with this victim, and then they start sharing nudes, sharing pictures, and it normalizes it for that kid. So like, hey, you share them too. We're all sharing, we're all doing this. Isn't this fun? Blah, blah, blah. And so they're using the group pressure and group dynamics. Meanwhile, this kid is like, hey, I have these friends and they're all doing it. So I want to be their friend. And the thing is these people are so good at what they do. Our kids are no match for them. That's the problem. So again, I would be very concerned about those kinds of games.
Yeah.
You wouldn't send your kid into an arena to play with adults from all over the world, wherever, you wouldn't. So I think that I would recommend very few of those kinds of games for kids under the age of 12, especially. Be very careful.
Yeah. The world is so different than when my kids were young. It's because my kids are all grown now. So just the the opportunities to for games like that, the interactive, the people talking to each other wasn't, when my kids were little, that wasn't a thing. And
Right.
so just it's so imperative for parents today to stay on top of this stuff, to be informed, to know what to look for. And that's why organizations like Defend Young Minds and others that are doing similar things are so important. So, Kristen, as we're kind of closing down today, tell everybody again what kind of resources. Tell us again about that freebie that you mentioned earlier. We'll be sure to link it, where we can find you, and then where we can find your books as well.
Great. Well, you can find us on social media at Defend Young Minds. And, we're on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and X, I think. Twitter, right? But Twitter is so full of porn. That's why they named it X, I think. I could be gotten for defamation there, but there's just so much porn on Twitter and on Facebook. So be careful about that social media. We recommend 16 as a minimum age for social media. Yeah. Okay, but where you can find, so go to our website, Defend Young Minds. Our books are there. Our guides are there. We have several free guides. Some are a minimal cost. We have one that's called My Kids Saw Porn, Now What? And it's a wonderful compilation, curation of our best advice that we have pulled together for parents. And it's a wonderful way to get prepared for that eventuality, so you know what to do when you find it on a device that your child is using, or they come and tell you. And we have a smart plan for parents. That is something that will be very helpful for parents, because if you react in the right way, it can be so helpful. And if you react in a negative way or freak out way, you're going to have to do some mopping up and regaining of trust. So we are giving you guidance on that. And yeah, join us on our social media. You can get the books on Amazon as well. They're number one bestsellers on Amazon. Thousands and thousands and thousands of 5-star reviews on both of them. So yeah, check it out. And thank you so much for wanting to help your children and walk with them every step of the way, so that they are helped by technology and not harmed by it. And I truly believe that is possible.
Well, Kristen, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom and your resources with us, and really opening our eyes to the dangers that are there, as well as how to combat it, how to prepare in advance. This has been a fantastic conversation that I know has been very helpful for those who've listened in. So thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you, Leslie. It's been a pleasure.
Well, well, good, good, good. To the rest of you, thank you for hanging out with us. I'm going to link all of the things that Kristen noted in the show notes so that you can easily access Defend Young Minds, find her books, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures for all ages, and also get to those resources that she mentioned. It is so important, as we are going for the hearts of our children, that we prepare them for really anything that may come their way. So this is one of those jobs of a parent, to prepare, to disciple, to give your children the information and the tools that they need to run when temptation, or when they are faced with things that they don't want to see. They really, it's scary, it's ugly, it's weird. Let them know how to handle that situation. Open that line of communication so that they know, first and foremost, run and then come straight to mom and dad, because you are the one that can help them get past that. So find those books, give your kids those tools, start having those conversations. You will be so glad you did. Now, I hope that you have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to talking to you again real soon.